If you don't already know who Wes Anderson is, we will be focusing on him for my background research today, as I will be taking you through a deeper look on his films across the years that he's developed. So sit back, relax, and follow along the story as we get to know the terms of Planemetric composition. This is me, Theo, and I will be taking you through my background research. Recently this month I've been researching many topics under directing. Wes Anderson is a great director as he brings in nostalgia and imagination from the past into the future. I really like his style of the films and it really connects to me. This is something that I've been focusing on for the past month now. This is to do with my background research under the style of Planemetric composition. I chose composition because it connects to me. With any film that we make as filmmakers, we've always got something to look at in the frame. Wes Anderson is an American filmmaker who is known for his animation feature films and a unique style that delivers an eye-catching response in a lot of his films, going from animation to real-life scenes that focus on his main technique, Planemetric composition. He's put his name in cinema history, especially with his techniques of composition. It's become his own style. He's likely being aware that he's bringing an aesthetic from the past into the future. This involves symmetry, whip pans, long lateral tracking shots, and detailed arranged shots and slow motion, and a unique story that separates from mainstream. The style of Planemetric composition has been around for years though, mainly seen by directors in the past such as the 1980s, from the 1988 film by Peter Greenaway called The Drowning by Numbers, as this director said he'd like to copy 17th century painters, mainly from Dutch art pieces. Wes Anderson was really inspired by Planemetric composition, and his style of directing came from his inspirations. He really got inspiration from directors such as the Hitchcock films, as it was a big influence on him in the past.
Filmmakers that I remember particularly making an impression on me. One was the American Hitchcock, the later Hitchcock films, and these were films that were released with his name, the director's name, above the title, and that was something I wasn't really aware of. I knew movie stars' names go above the title. The other two were Steven Spielberg. He was such a famous director, and I loved these films, and I loved Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he made a huge impression on me. But the other one that was in our local video store was Les Quatre Cents Coups. I don't think I'd ever seen a movie that was in French, and maybe I was 15 or something like that. And I think probably Truffaut, but that film is a bit like, they say about the Velvet Underground what doesn't apply to Truffaut is they say not very many people bought the records in the first place, but everyone who bought the record started a band.
I'd like to talk about Stanley Kubrick, as The Shining from 1980 was one of the most influential films of that era. The young boy Danny, who was the character riding his bike down the hallways, is a really good scene to talk about, as we see this shot following Danny along the hallways. As you can tell, the two girls at the end of the hallway are very symmetrical and in composition, keeping everything in the frame and visible to the viewer.
Hello, Danny. Come and play with us.
With old paintings, we can see it evolve through history, taking that past into the future,
Play with us, Danny.
such as The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci, as the rules of cinematography have evolved from paintings to photography to films over the years. Talking about directors of this era today, we will obviously see this technique in many films as it is an essential topic to use in latest films. Recently I watched a horror film by a local director that was called Censor, which I really enjoyed. I really liked the sense of lighting in this film, as well. In an ending scene I remember, the use of Planemetric composition was there and clear in shot, and the ratio of the screen was very detailed and for what it was presenting to the viewer. It was as if Wes Anderson was going back to this early aesthetic that we see from these formats, passed down through generations and time. We can get a sense of nostalgia from these evolutional progressions, and as it inspires more young filmmakers today, I really think it has a positive effect over the years. Wes Anderson really does have an influence on me. I've watched his films over the years and it has really brought me joy, where we see the same planimetric composition used in all of these films, whether it's filmed in real life or animated with puppets. And I really love that aesthetic where they've taken so much time and effort to put into this work. My favourite film has been Fantastic Mr. Fox, as they've really put the energy and inspiration into the time of 1960, especially with the colours that are set for this unique movie. And I really like his techniques because it really fits everything perfectly into the frame, and this really brings me satisfaction to how it rolls out with the story. With these films, you will see more in-depth feelings that you wouldn't really see in a kid's movie, from the upset to the heartbreak, and how scenes of people and characters come together in scenes that are very emotional. I think these films attach themselves to me because they're very unique, something that takes a long time over many years, separating itself from mainstream. They obviously connect to me behind the scenes on more of a creative aspect, and it brings out the environment bigger in the story, with his style with planimetric composition. And when bringing the imagination of the story to a location in real life, it really brings out the location to be bigger than it was, helping the story grow and bring things into a dreamlike environment. All of this becomes really eye-catching, and I see it as purposefully done, which is the director's touch. It's influential, and people will pick up on it. I believe inspiration is key when it comes to the director getting their shots and style. This is something that's going to have an effect on me too. I'm really interested in how Wes Anderson has taken pieces throughout time. I would think Wes Anderson is aware of previous forms of art and composition sources, calling it the early aesthetic. In framing, the characters stay in the particular space, which is connected to the composition. For example, painting and photography use that particular space. Visual arts such as painting and photography can demonstrate how they use the space too. In one of Wes Anderson's interviews, he described how he didn't go to university at a young age, and that he developed these techniques on his own and collaborating with many friends and people over the years. In conclusion, Wes Anderson has inspired me to take on planimetric composition because I am inspired by the effect composition has on the work and the story. Wes is passionate about his work and explains the options of going down the right path to succeed and nurturing one's passion to become successful, and how it's all about being different than the norm. From my perspective, I want to further experiment which will have a positive effect in my final major project. Doing so, I will achieve my goals. Thank you for watching.